How's it going?
It's good. How about you, man?
Yeah, doing good. One of the things I just kind of recently found out was you are really into health, wellness, helping people transform their bodies. So can you tell like people a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. So right now, my main gig is body work. I It's under the umbrella of massage therapy. I do soft tissue work, and I basically help people iron out their kinks. So I help them fix their posture through my arms, my hands, my elbows. That's my main thing. And then on the side, I just film content related to health and wellness, fitness, sexual transmutation, semen retention, stuff on masculinity and stuff like that.
Nice,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to get into like helping people with their bodies and like, I mean, there's so many ways to help people, right? And heal people, but why specifically did you choose like helping people improve their posture?
Yeah. Well, it started with like personal training. When I was doing personal training, I realized there was a lot of people who couldn't do certain movements.
Mm,
And I was trying to figure out like, why is it? And then started to go down the rabbit hole of tight muscles and learning about muscle imbalances. And that's when, I think you introduced me to Elliot Hulse.
mhm.
Yeah, I saw a lot of videos from Elliot Hulse, and then I found Paul Check through Elliot Hulse. And then once I found Paul Check, it was pretty much like game over, like as in like, that whole holistic health fitness journey started from that because I realized, people's bodies were just a reflection of what's going on inside. Like it's everything, it's mental, emotional, and even maybe spiritual. But I saw like the whole picture, that
Mm,
certain people they don't move, so it reflects in their body in certain movement patterns. So once I kind of dove deeper into holistic health, it really interested me in terms of like having alignment, having your body straight,
mhm.
having your muscles balanced, and just having everything working properly. And that's exactly, how I got started with wanting to help people in that area. Like it just lights me up.
Mm, that's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. So do you still do like any of the like, I know you're a personal trainer and you're helping people like
Uh,
lose weight, build muscle, that sort of thing. Do you
yeah.
still do some of that or do you just focus on body work now?
Right now it's all body work. Yeah.
Mm,
Before it was personal training, and then I hit like a ceiling in terms of like how much it can grow. Because like at LA Fitness or the big box gyms, you're only given a certain amount of time. And, I kind of like, I couldn't teach them anymore beyond that. So that's how I got called into massage therapy and body work. So I
mm,
started to get into that field that way. But yeah, it's all body work right now.
that's awesome. So yeah, it's kind of like that's kind of what I've noticed too. Like just in my personal journey is like there's development, like first you start off with something. I remember in college, my mission was always to impact people and help people, right? And
Hmm.
so I was like, maybe I should become a detective because grew up watching like shows, crime shows
Uh-huh.
with my mom. And
Hmm.
um and I thought, wow, that'd be really cool to just help people, help families, just kind of find out who killed, their family member. And then I started taking a few classes um at Sac State, and I was like, this is not for me, you know, because you had to become a police officer first, but sometimes I might not agree with their laws, but I would
Uh-huh.
still have to enforce it, right?
Hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can become a social worker and help, families that have been affected by like, society and they need help. And then I took a few classes. I'm like, this is kind of like the same thing. I would still have to follow policies that someone else created that I might not believe in, right? And so then I bumped into business. I
Hmm.
figure, I realized that money is what moves the world. People that with a lot of resources move the world, whether it's for good or for bad. And so why don't I use money for good? And when I build my own business, it's my rules. I
Hmm.
get to decide how I want to build the business and the causes that I want to help. So that's kind of how I landed here. But it kind of took years of development to realize that, and really focusing on the root cause. So yeah, it seems like you kind of undergone something very similar.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how like the universe will guide you, because like if you try to do something that you think you want to do, and then you get into it and it doesn't actually work out, like you'll get nudged in a certain other direction, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. So what are just kind of like some of the things that people have a problem with, when you're working on their body? Like,
Mm.
are there like aches and pain, lower back pain? Like, I know posture is one thing. Like, what is kind of like the root cause of, poor posture and like the pain that people experience in their bodies?
Yeah. So the most common things that I see and feel in my practice would be neck pain, like neck tension, and then like lower back and hip stuff. So neck and
Mm,
shoulders and then lower back. So those are like the two junction points that where the most problems can occur. Because like with your pelvis, like your glutes and your core, if any one of those are weak or tight or not, one's pulling on it more, it's going to cause your like pelvis to rotate, or it's going to cause it to elevate. Or if your quads or your hamstrings, one of them is tighter than the other, then it'll cause like the one to go forward, one to go backwards. So there's like two different forces going on. So with like the pelvis, there's a bunch of things that can happen. And when I feel a lot, and most people, sometimes there's like no muscle tone in their butt. So they probably don't train their glutes. A lot of them have super big bellies, like
mm,
super big guts. Maybe their intestines are inflamed. Like they eat a
mm,
bunch of shitty diet, like a bad diet, and it's like their gut is just like, and
right.
that's like you won't be able to control your pelvis because your stomach is way too big and you don't have any core control. So people who
Mm,
have any type of muscle, tightness in their hips or their legs, or their core isn't functioning, that usually leads to lower back pain. And I can't really fix that on the table, because it's like I can only address tight muscles, like muscle restrictions. So people who come in for like lower back pain, it's kind of complicated, but it's like you just need to work out and do some movement first. And then once you tightened everything up, then I'll loosen up the ones that need to be loosened. And then like neck and shoulder pain, a lot of it is just coming from sitting too much, like, what kyphosis is, like
mm-mm.
rounding like your spine, just like
Oh,
touching forward. It's that posture.
right.
So when you're sitting all the time, like it just strains your neck. So a lot of it
Hmm.
is just, muscle imbalances from what we do every day. So yeah, that's what I work on.
Oh,
The
that's
tight
awesome.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but earlier last year, I think it was February,
Mhm.
I started getting sciatica. Like there was like a,
Oh.
oh yeah. If you guys never had sciatica before, it's the most excruciating pain
Uh,
that you'll ever feel. Well, in my opinion, that's the thing that's the only
which,
thing I've really felt where
which leg
it
did you
just
get it on?
feels so bad. It was at first it started with both.
Uh,
So like the way to describe
bilateral. Yeah. Yeah.
the way to describe sciatic pain is like someone stabbing you in the back of your leg, or like at some points it felt like your leg was like burning, like
Uh,
someone lit fire on your leg and it's
uh,
just burning.
uh,
And so there was a few days where I couldn't even walk. Like I was just stuck, and then I figured it's because I was sitting too much.
okay.
And then on top of that, sitting in a really bad chair, it was like a dining room chair, like working from home and like working in the kitchen,
I
like
see. I
the
see.
dining room.
So you didn't like hurt yourself, and then because like usually when it's on both, it's pretty severe.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was bad. And then eventually it was on the right leg. It kind of like moved. It was weird. Started with
I see.
both and then it moved to the right.
I
And
see.
so I went to a physical therapist,
Uh-huh.
and he kind of gave me some exercises and some stretches to do to work with.
Uh-huh.
And so for a few months, I didn't even sit, like in a chair. I was either like standing or I was
Standing
like
desk. Yeah.
laying down in my belly on the couch with working, which
Uh-huh.
might have caused other issues now that I think about it.
Uh-huh.
But then it went away after about 3 months, 3 to 4 months. But man, it was so painful. And then after that, I decided, I'm no longer going to sit when I'm working. So I bought a little treadmill desk, and so I'm either walking or I'm standing. But it's been tremendous. Yeah, I've been doing it for about like 5 months now. You burn a few hundred calories a day just by walking and standing. And then on top of that, just more energy after you walk, more clarity, and then no lower back pain anymore, like went away.
Nice,
So
nice.
so yeah, it's been probably the best investment I've spent in the past year.
A treadmill desk, huh?
Yeah, treadmill desk. Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, usually you see like stand-up desks, but treadmill desks, that's a completely different animal.
yeah,
Like
it's
you're
like
walking and you're working at the same time.
yeah, exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it depends on the task, So like
Yeah.
if I have a task where it's like I need to put in a lot of mental energy, then I just stand. But if it's like, emails or something that's light and doesn't require too much brain power, then I would turn on this, the treadmill. Yeah.
Well, that makes it easy, or that makes it easy to get your steps in too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So so one thing I was kind of drawn to your content recently is I noticed that you became more vocal about like I think a video you described the masculinity crisis. Right? So
Yeah.
what is the masculinity crisis?
So it's a good topic. It's a deep one too.
Yeah.
But the masculinity crisis, at least how I'm seeing it, is the current state of men, or boys. I say it's a crisis because in the past, like if we look at, the warriors or the men that went to war, I think that breed of men is completely different from the type of men that you see nowadays. In the past, they would be legit like warriors going to war, maybe training, fighting, or building things, making swords, like hardcore physical stuff. But now it's like we have keyboard warriors, people who play video games all day. It's like it's not necessarily bad to play video games, but instead of going to war and training for war, people are on the computer, attacking other people with their words, or playing too much, games. Instead of going out and hunting, they're watching porn, or what I'm saying. So the masculinity crisis is, there's a crisis within masculinity. Like there isn't that type of masculine role model, or at least there are men out there still nowadays, but the amount of them and the type of them have been decreasing tremendously, similar to like how like there's studies like now that our testosterone is going lower and lower compared to what it was before. So essentially, like in a nutshell, that's what I see as a masculinity crisis. It's the rising of weak men, boys that aren't developed yet. So that's what I see as the crisis.
Interesting. Now, do you think it's because what do you think is the cause of that? Do you think it's because of like you said, video games and just like devices that are tempting, that kind of cause them to kind of move towards that? Or do you think it's like a deeper issue? Like, what do you think is the cause of this masculinity crisis?
Yeah, well, it's all those. It's multifactorial, but the first few things that pop up to my mind is one, the rising feminine, feminism. And then, video games would be one of them. That's like the low hanging fruit. Porn would be another. And then consumerism, like eating too much food that has that disrupts their endocrine system, their hormones. If you're eating foods that kind of cause your your hormones to be imbalanced, because your testosterone and your like growth hormone is based off of cholesterol. And if you're not eating enough like animal products like Liver King, like all those organ meats and whatnot, you don't have the raw building block of the hormones that you need to have those levels of testosterone. So if you're not working out, you're not eating correctly, and you have access to video games instead of going out to train, you have access to porn instead of going out to watch or to talk to women and chase women and whatnot, then all the stuff that you're designed to do as a man gets like decreased, and because of that, you now have like a lesser man, because men need like challenge, and they need things that really sharpen their tool in the real world, not something that's virtual, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I think the cause, it's multiple things: food, devices, the consumerism, all of it, combined together, that's affecting the way the man is thinking and feeling. And as a result, that's what is the byproduct. If we just look around, it's,
Mhm.
you can see it everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many men do you think like if you had to out of 100%, right? Like
Uh,
what percentage of men do you think are going through that?
the first thing that popped in my mind was like 60, maybe, like I would say it oscillates, In the
Mm,
Western society, I would say at least half of the men are
mm,
suffering from that, and maybe
wow.
closer to up 80. Yeah. There's like a echelon, And then
Mm,
I would say the top 20% or like 20% of men are the ones that are trying to get up to the climb up the ladder and, become more masculine. And they see what's going on. They're not, falling for that trap,
mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's miserable,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So do you think it's just like just two cat groups, like weak men and then like men that are trying to strive for better, or do you think is there like in between, like a middle class, like
No,
or
there definitely is a middle class,
Mhm.
there's it's like, how they say, like, autism. Can you still hear me? I
Yeah, I can hear
might
you.
kind of,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, I kind of decreased in sound. But I think there's like a spectrum, kind of like how they say autism spectrum disorder.
Mhm.
Like, I think there's a spectrum. I think there's more men that
Mm,
are falling down and getting weaker.
mhm.
But I don't think it's like black and white, like you're either weak or you're strong, I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of, maybe struggling men too that are like caught in the middle, trying to figure out how to not be weak and haven't developed strength yet. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm,
there's
mhm.
different levels to it, for
Right.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I see. Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. So where do you think where do you think this leads? Do you think it will continue to go down this path where like 99% of men are going to be weak and there's only 1%? Like, where do you think it ends? You know what I
Uh,
mean?
well, I'm glad you asked that, because there was a quote that I was wanting to share, and this answers it perfectly.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it was basically, hard times create
Hmm.
strong men create good times create weak men, and then weak men create hard times. So basically, it's a cycle of life, because
Hmm.
when things are hard, that's when strong men get created. Like
Hmm.
there's going to be seed of black and white, like
Hmm.
yin and yang. The cycle of life will just keep going forward. Like, there's going to be good times, and because there's going to be good times, there's going to be a lot of weak people. And
Hmm.
when there's a lot of weak people, it creates hard times. So that cycle just keeps going back and forth.
Hmm.
So I think it's just going to be, it's eventually going to end, Like, I think the women are going to realize, like, they can't run this world by themselves, or they
Hmm.
can't be the leader the whole time, I think men were designed to be leaders. I think men were designed to be strong. I think men were designed to have mission, have purpose, and be like the head of the household. And when there isn't that, there's a bunch of chaos and disorder. But, after chaos and disorder, there's order and, law. And then when there's too much order and law, there's chaos and disorder. And then it just goes back and forth until eternity, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of see it as a cycle, like
Yeah.
it's always
Very
going to
much
be
so.
cyclical, and it's never going to get a point where we're always going to have strong men or we're always going to have weak men. It's going to
Yeah.
change over time.
Exactly. Because, like, I don't know if you're aware, but like in our history lessons, it seemed like we were in a patriarchy for a good amount of time. The men were
Hmm.
in charge. They were like the leaders in war. There was kings and, and stuff like that. But now it's more like, the woman, strong woman, the was it the boss bitch, like,
Hmm.
have the boss babe, and have like women's rights. Yeah, women, feminism, So I think there's going to be a period of that, but then there's also going to be like the men are going to be suppressed in and out, So it's going to flip, and I think
Hmm.
we're right at that transition point between like night and day.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, do you think there always has to be like a yin and a yang, or do you feel like they can both be in harmony, like where it's almost like equal, like 50% men, 50% women? Or do you think just life is just swings back and forth like a pendulum, like we can't really, humans can't really balance. We're always like, on one extreme or the other, moving between one extreme or the other?
I think it is part of life. I also think there's going to be periods where we're getting closer to equilibrium, like we're staying in equilibrium for longer, where there's like harmony.
Mm.
But then depending on how, I guess, evolved or what phase of development people are in, or the universe or the planets, right? Depending on what phase it is in, that harmony can only last for so long until, polarity, because it's the law of duality. There's yin and yang. There's always going to be night and day. In some countries or in some places in the earth, like there's only 2 seasons, so or there's like 4, so I think it really depends on maybe where you're living, or what age it is, because like in the yoga traditions, there's like the yuga cycles. So like depending on what cycle we're living in, there might be more balance between yin and yang, or masculine and feminine. But then in different ages, maybe the feminine's going to rise for like hundreds, if not thousands of years. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's always going to be a back and forth, but there's always going to be pockets of people or communities who know how to live in harmony and really have the energies balanced.
Do you think that's the most ideal sort of culture, is like having a balance?
Yeah, because right as I mentioned that, something popped up, like it's related to the work that I do. It's like equilibrium, having postural balance, and then having your body in homeostasis. That's just like the optimal state for the world, or for humans, for in general, like homeostasis, like having balance and not having too much of one or the other.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One thing that kind of came to mind, like I'm sure you heard about the recent shootings. Like it's kind of like at the point where there's one happening pretty much every week. And then one thing I think people can easily notice is that there's one sort of, and I'm generally speaking here, but most of the time it's men, that are doing the shootings. And so it's like, what causes someone to feel so much pain that they feel like they need to share that pain with other people and really like go out there and take lives, And so that's one thing that I've been just kind of like marinating on and just kind of reflecting on. It's like, what causes men to get to that point, and it might be very similar to what you're saying. It's like men are in so much pain and the weakness, because a strong man wouldn't do something like that. Someone who's like mature, someone who's confident in themselves, who's a family man, who like, takes care of their community. They're not going to do something like that. And so I think a lot of like the term masculinity has been thrown around so many different ways. And I think a strong man is someone that doesn't hurt other people,
or at least
like
unnecessarily,
unless they have to, right? In self-defense, or they're protecting their family. But they're not going out there and harassing women and attacking women, or attacking other people, or shooting up places. They're like taking care of their community, in my opinion. I mean, what are your thoughts on
that? In terms of like why men shoot people up, or does it shooting, or what's going on?
Exactly. Like what do you think, kind of like the pain, what's besides like the porn and the addiction and like the video games, do you think there's something else going on besides that's causing men to like
shoot things,
shoot up? Like, what is causing that pain?
Well, there's 2 things. The first one would just be more like, I think the mainstream media chooses to show us what they want us to see in terms of like shootings, maybe gun rights and whatnot, just to paint that picture, because I'm sure there are many other gruesome, horrible things that happen in the US or in the world that men are doing, or people or certain groups are doing, that they aren't showing, but they're specifically showing the shooting for a reason. But to answer the question about why, I think, it's hard to say. Maybe there's a bit of psychoticness to that, like psychosis, and that's what I would say it's a mix of psychotic behavior, like a psychopath, and also toxic masculinity. People talk about toxic masculinity, but I think when masculinity isn't expressed in a proper way, like it's festering inside, like all that pain of like maybe not having a girlfriend or not having anyone look up to you or not having anyone appreciate you. You don't feel like no one, you're unseen basically. So in
Mhm.
order to feel control and to exercise your power as a man, in order to feel significant or in order to feel like I have control over something, I'm gonna show people my strength by creating, like making a gun or shooting up a school or blowing
Mhm.
something up because I want to feel significant. But yeah, I think it's more psychopathic in a way,
Mhm.
because even the weakest men or the people who aren't doing well in society, or like men who aren't, like, I guess, mentally healthy, I don't think there's a large number of people who would go up to school and shoot people up. I
Mhm.
think they'll just medicate themselves with food, or they'll just watch more porn or play more video games. I think the school shootings are more of a psychopathic behavior
Mm.
combined with what the mainstream media wants you to see, basically. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially the part where you talk about like not having a sense of control and
Uh-huh.
feeling like they need to express that sort of control.
Mhm.
Like it kind of what comes to mind is the book Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
So having like a mission, having a purpose,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
then that allows you to divert all your energy and focus into that purpose or that mission.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's crucial for men, you
Uh-huh.
know, I mean, for everybody, but for
More
men
specific.
specifically,
Yeah, yeah.
because if they have a mission, you're not thinking about doing bad things. If you have a mission that's doing good in the world, you're not thinking about all the bad things. You're able to avoid temptation easier.
Mhm.
You're more disciplined. You're more focused. You can move on and work on finishing tasks and completing tasks, right? So that's what comes to mind when I think about like just having control, and putting
Mm.
that control towards like a higher meaning and a higher purpose.
Mhm. No, that's exactly it. I think purpose is essential for men, like you were saying, it gives you something to be disciplined for. It gives you a place to channel your energy. I don't know if you know Bedros Keuilian, but he was talking about like how people like dogs, men are like dogs. Like we need something to fetch. We need something to do. Otherwise, we just keep chasing after the tail or barking or doing stupid stuff,
Mm,
because it's not there isn't something to funnel our energy towards and you know give ourselves to. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, talking about like life's purpose? Like, what is your purpose? What do you feel like you're on this earth to accomplish?
Yeah. Well, I reflected on that for a good amount of time when it came down to when I got into massage therapy school. It was, I see my dharma, my path. Dharma is to align people's bodies, transform their bodies through the services, like my hands-on services, having a wellness clinic, and just you know bringing people into homeostasis, like showing people their best self, basically,
Mhm.
through body work, through movement, through nutrition. So having a center, a place, and being able to package all of that and deliver it to someone so that they can experience, the highest potential that they have for their life. So that would be my highest purpose. But the road to get there, there's going to be many different, detours, paths, and things like quests that I need to kind of accomplish in order to make that a reality. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's basically transform lives. That's what I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can definitely resonate with that. That's what I'm starting to
Hmm.
realize is that there's not one path to like transformation, helping other people. There's so many different paths and so many different ways you can impact people's lives.
Hmm.
So that's one of like my mission, my life's purpose is to impact. I'm just gonna put like billions. I want to make like a large scale worldly impact. But
Nice.
there's not just one way to do that. There's so many different things that you can do that could impact that.
Yeah. You mentioned you wanted to be a philanthropist. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, a
Yeah.
long time ago, and
Yeah.
that is still my mission.
Yeah.
I don't see myself just being one thing.
Uh-huh.
Like I kind of resonate more towards the like not like a renaissance man, but just have many different things I'm interested in and that
Uh-huh.
I would like to pursue.
Yeah.
So like one of them is definitely business. One of them is going to be philanthropy. I do enjoy talking to people that I find interesting and having conversations with them, and that kind of bring up discussion and critical thinking, get people to reflect, just things like that. So those are some of the things that like I'm just passionate about right now.
Yeah. How do you plan on getting there? And like, what would you say your vision or your mission is? Your life purpose.
Mhm. Yeah, life's purpose will definitely be similar to yours. Positively impact lives, around the world, and becoming the best version of myself and helping others do the same.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like my mission, and there's definitely a lot of ways to get there. Another thing I'm passionate about is health and wellness. That's one thing I've been down, because if what is it? The quote's like, if you're dead, you're out of business. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of great reminders like, hey, like work is important, but there's
Uh,
something else that comes before that, which is your
uh,
health. And sometimes
y-
people sacrifice their health for work,
yeah.
and that's one thing like I have to remind myself sometimes.
Mhm,
It's like, oh man, I want to work harder. I need to put more hours into my work. And it's
mhm,
like, well, that means I need to sleep less, you know.
mhm,
And then I'm like, okay, well, how much less? It's like, oh, I'm only getting 4, 5, 6 hours. That's, I want to get around 7 to 8, because, sleep is critical for your health.
mhm.
So, so I definitely remind myself sometimes, because sometimes I go too hard, and I need to like, balance myself out with making sure I take care of my health. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. That reminds me of I forgot, it was a saying of like how like a rich person has many desires or many wants, but the person in the hospital only had like who is suffering from ill health only has one desire, and that's to be healthy.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. I
Oh
butchered
yeah.
that, but I think there was something about that. Yeah.
And that definitely puts it to perspective really quickly.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Like the person that's dying of like cancer or something, he only
Mhm.
wants one thing, and that's to be healthy. And then the
Right.
person who has like a lot of money, like I want the yacht, I want this, I want that, But
Mhm.
health, yeah, it's the foundation.
Yeah. I like quotes like that, where there's like, it's only like one or two sentences, but really quickly it puts things in perspective. It's
Yeah,
like
it
a
hits.
gut punch,
Uh-huh.
like, oh yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mhm.
It's
So,
pretty hard.
yeah, like I know, talking
Uh-huh.
about health and wellness, I
Yeah,
noticed like on your Facebook page, I mean your, Facebook timeline,
yeah.
the top picture are
Uh-huh.
some risque risque shirtless pictures of yourself posing, and
Oh yeah.
flexing on people.
Uh,
So and then I was reading the post, and one of the
uh
things you said was that you, after 10 years, it's like you
yeah.
figured it out. You figured out the secret to get
Uh
consistent gains,
yeah.
and for the people just listening, Kevin
Yeah.
is pretty lean. What would you say you're like 12 to 15% body fat?
Yeah, I would say I oscillate between that. If I'm trying to get a little bit bigger, then I'll be closer to 15%.
Mm,
But yeah, I would oscillate between maybe 10 to 12 at my leanest. And, yeah, it really depends on how I'm feeling. Fat actually comes really off really fast on my body, even like within
oh,
days,
really? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
but yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what are the secrets? You got 10 years of secrets, and I'm sure that people want to, and by
The
the way,
secrets.
like
Yeah.
Kevin's been
Mm.
working, everybody, Kevin has been working out for a very long time. How many years have you trained for? Like,
Since high school, we started to get almost started together.
yeah, I
I
think you
think,
started before me, like a little bit
yeah,
before me, right?
yeah,
You were
yeah, I
doing
probably
track and
started.
field. I remember that.
Okay, okay, yeah. Well, it was track and field, and then I probably got into it like a year or two, like sophomore year. So
Mm,
what was that, like 15, 16? So almost, yeah, like 10, 11 years. But
yeah.
see, I mean, compared to the people who've been in 10, 11 years, I mean, I obviously don't compare to people. I don't think I'm like, I'm not there yet, like I don't look as
Mhm.
good as I know I could look. So just to be fair, like take my advice with a grain of salt. But yeah, yeah, I've been doing it for 10, 11 years. Not, yeah, it's a good amount of time.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah, I've done this. Yeah, we started. I remember we started working to get out together. I think it
uh-huh.
was senior year.
Yeah.
I think it was like during the winter. I remember I signed up for the 24-hour fitness there,
Yeah,
and
we worked out together. I
yeah,
remember
then we
that.
worked out together,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like always looked up to you because you had a few years. I think you had a year, at least a year or 2 years of training before I did. And yeah, I think I'm getting close to 10 years now.
Uh-huh.
And I
Yeah.
definitely feel like I've made progress, like I don't like to compare myself, but
Uh-huh.
I,
Yeah, of course.
like I try to focus on my own thing at the gym, but
Yeah.
I do see myself like a little bigger than the
Uh-huh.
people there, like a little bit more experience. People there are probably like either starting off or like they're a few years in, right?
Mhm.
So I definitely have a lot of experience, but like you said, there's so much more I can achieve. I feel like what was it last week? The guy came up to me and he's like, "Man, like your shoulders are popping." I'm like, "You think so?" you know, like I don't think so.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I've been trying to work out my shoulders more." And whenever I see someone with good
Nice
shoulders,
shoulders.
I recommend them. Like, yeah, thanks, but I feel like they could be bigger. I guess
Yeah.
that's kind of like the obsessiveness of like bodybuilders and people that want to like get
Yeah.
bigger is like it's never enough.
Yeah.
It's like I want more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's chasing like your potential, your
Mhm.
perfection, chasing what, like there's an image of what you feel like you can get to, and it's like constantly striving towards that. So,
Mhm.
I mean, like comparing yourself to yourself would be the best way to go, as opposed
Right.
to someone else, because a lot of the people are on like steroids and gear and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. What are
yeah,
your thoughts on that, by the way? Like, you know, uh,
yeah. What do you mean in terms of steroids?
yeah. So like
Mhm.
Liver King.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that sucks.
if you guys don't know Liver King is like this guy that blew out of nowhere, and
Uh,
all he eats is like organs and meat,
yeah,
and like he talks about these ancestral
ancestral tenants.
tenets,
Uh-huh.
and this guy's yoked, and he like out of like he went on podcast after podcast and denying that he did any steroids, and then like
Yeah,
a bombshell truth came out in the leaked emails and he got caught, and then he
yeah.
had to like backtrack. And so like what are your thoughts on like the steroid use
Mhm.
in the industry, in the fitness industry?
I mean, I don't necessarily see it as a problem if people are like honest about it, and like if everyone at the top, like at the top of the top, are competing with steroids, then it's like you kind of don't have an option if you want to like get to your peak, because then you'll hit your genetic limit, and then to get past your genetic limit, you need to have like steroids to an extent. So I think it's okay. It's not natural, but like it's normal for them to do it, for people to do it. But I think when you're misleading people, like, oh, you can look like this or you can achieve this, uh, you know, naturally, then that's where it kind of gets kind of like iffy. I think that's where the line needs to be drawn. But hey, I mean, a lot of the people that I looked up to, maybe they did steroids, and because they look so good on steroids, that motivated me to go even harder. So there's some inspiration in people who do steroids that lie about it, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So I'm not against it. I personally won't take it, but at least not until I hit my peak or anything. So we'll see. Yeah.
Does a disservice,
Hmm.
and one thing that like I've noticed recently is even the natural people, the
Yeah.
people that got there naturally and they look good, they put in a
Yeah.
lot of hard work,
Yeah.
they're being accused of steroids now,
That's exactly it.
and
Yeah.
so like it's almost like a cop out for people,
That
that are
is.
just beginning. It's like, oh, I'm never gonna look like that because they're using steroids and I'm not using steroids. And so it's almost like an excuse for people either not to get started or work harder. And so that's one thing I think is really dangerous now. It's like it's gone to a point where people are accusing anybody that looks good of using
Y-
steroids. And there are people out there that are not using steroids that have
I like
achieved it
it.
through dedication, hard work, obsessiveness, and
Yeah.
things like that.
No, no, that's a really good point, because a lot of the people online, like the internet wizards, internet warriors, are like, they'll see a nice, good body that like is kind of skeptical. It's like, oh, I don't know that, I don't know, is that guy natural? He looks kind of shreddy, looks kind of ripped, but I'm just gonna say he uses steroids. So it's just like that's the easy way out. And when you accuse someone of using steroids, whether or not they do, like it just puts in your mind that like, yeah, I don't have to work as hard, or like I don't, there's no way I can achieve that. And you set yourself up for failure, basically. Like you create a block or a limiting belief that, you know, you need to do steroids in order to look good, which is like a false premise. So it does limit people. So yeah, you're completely right on that, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Sucks. I mean, hey, those people, they're probably not going to look good at all. So, I mean, regardless of whether you're on steroids or you're natural, or like if you look good naturally, like you have to put in an insane amount of work. So it doesn't matter if you're on steroids or you're not, like to look good, you have to work very, very hard. So, man, you know, it is what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it goes back to like, you know, like comparing yourself to yourself. You know,
Mhm.
it's like if you're on social media and then you're either jealous of other people and you're
Uh-huh.
not willing to put in the hard work, that says something about you. You know, so like stop looking at other people and focus on, hey, can I personally me look better? You know,
Uh-huh.
and so like I think that's crucial. You know, that's critical.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I've been pretty obsessed with, and I'd say probably about the last year, is
Uh-huh.
longevity. You know, I've
Uh-huh.
been like really following some longevity doctors and influencers.
I
You
see.
ever heard of like Dr. Peter Attia?
Mm.
Okay, Peter Attia, David Sinclair is another good one. Um, so David Sinclair, he's a Harvard professor, and he's learning how we can almost like reverse age.
Uh-huh.
Through doing like different diets, and they do like very like scientific studies, you know, to figure that out.
Uh-huh.
And so he has a podcast called Lifespan, and I listened to that when it came out, and some
Nice.
of his videos. They're both interviewed by Joe Rogan. That's how I kind of learned about them.
Uh,
So David Sinclair takes a like holistic approach through like, you know, doing many different sort of things, including like some prescription drugs,
mhm.
um, you know, whether it be diet, sleep, decreasing stress, all that. And then Peter Attia focuses more on like physical, like
Mhm.
what can you physically do to increase your longevity. It's like grip strength, you know, building muscle strength, uh, you know, having a VO2 max, training with a VO2 max of like, I think 2 for a certain amount of time per week, you know, like
Mhm.
saunas, like that sort of thing.
I see.
So yeah, I've been pretty obsessed with longevity, and I
Longevity.
even tailored my diet
Okay.
to fit longevity, you know.
How are you changing it? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So a couple of things. So you know, one of the things is nuts. I found that like nuts is really good for longevity. So I started eating more nuts.
Mm.
Um Fruit, having a certain amount of fiber and fruit in your diet. So making sure I get more fruit in my diet, berries specifically. I think that's one thing that a lot of the studies kind of indicate towards is like berries are kind of like, especially blackberries are really good. Raspberries are really good for longevity. Some studies are showing like Mediterranean diets are really good. So like it's okay to have some meat, but not too much meat.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of hard because it's like I'm also like into bodybuilding and I need to make sure I have enough protein.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like I kind of balance, you know, have a
Mhm.
balance between longevity
Mhm.
um and also uh like bodybuilding and
Mhm.
muscle building. But it indicates that like Mediterranean diets, like limiting meat, is important for longevity. And having some meat is fine, but not too much, you know, not too much meat and overdoing it. And then having more veggies and vegetables and whole vegetables and whole grains are important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, you're
what,
Asian too, so you have the genetics.
yeah, I know, right?
What were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, what's your diet like? You know, I notice on social media, you're like, I think the recent one is like a soup that you made with like different vegetables and stuff. So like do you eat the same thing every day, or do you like have like just your diet vary day to day?
Yeah, well, it varies. And yeah, I definitely think longevity and like good health and vibrancy, a lot of that comes from nutrition. But I alternate between like vegan and vegetarian when I'm not training as hard, like when I'm trying to like lighten up. And then I'll do high quality animal proteins for like cholesterol and like hormones. So at night I'll have like high quality meat with some vegetables, but I keep it super clean for the most part. But yeah, yeah. Yeah, food is very important when it comes down to your skin, how you look, and like how long you're gonna live. But I keep it clean, organic, colorful foods, and yeah, yeah, yeah.
Increase vegetables more because the only thing I really eat as far as
Uh-huh.
vegetables go are like carrots, like the small baby carrots that I dip with like hummus. Most of my fiber comes from fruits. But I also saw this study. There's
Uh-huh.
this guy named Nutrition Made Simple, and he had a couple researchers on, and they tested the difference between fiber and foods with you know, uh,
Prebiotic.
probiotic enzymes like
Okay.
kimchi and like sauerkraut and pickles and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And then he found that it's actually easier. They found that's easier to digest foods with probiotics,
Mm.
um, versus fiber,
Mm-hmm.
especially for people who for a long time did not get any fiber. They're eating
Mm.
really bad food,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden they're increasing their fiber. They're having
Mm-hmm.
a reaction to it. Their gut's having a reaction because it's used to not having fiber for a long time, and now you're bringing too much fiber in at once. So they have to be very methodical about introducing the fiber into their diet.
Uh-huh.
And so but overall they found that like foods with probiotics like kimchi is easier to digest than just high fiber type foods.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that was really interesting, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, because kimchi and stuff like the raw foods that are living that has like a bit of bacteria in it. I think that because it's alive and it has like bacteria, it helps digest it while it's in your gut, as opposed to just like eating a starch or like a potato or something, like something that's just heavy in carbs and has nothing like fiber and has nothing, no enzymes, nothing. I think that's where the problem is. Yeah.
So like what are some of the, I know you like mentioned whole foods, so like do you just eat vegetables and meat? Do you have any like carbs in
Oh,
there at all?
some
Like how
specifics. Yeah.
yeah, like I want to hear
Yeah.
specifics,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
like
yeah. I
your
got
diet.
you. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because I was just writing my nutrition section on my program, like redoing it, and nutrition was the most comprehensive part of it because it's so important when it comes down to your vibe, your vibrational frequency, and like how you look, how you feel, how people feel you. But I would say my secret would be to adhere to the rainbow diet. So I try to get as many colors in my palette as possible, and I try to make them raw and organic. So like in my smoothies, I'll put in like kale, like organic kale. And like when you choose the vegetables, when you choose the kale, like you want to choose one that's fresh, and it's fresh when it's like crispy and hard. Like if it's like floppy and flimsy and it looks like it's like been out for a while and it's all brown and stuff like or yellow, it's no good. So you want something that's like crisp, hard, and like when you smack it, it has some like resonance to it. So organic kale is like my go-to when it comes down to getting like super nutrients in your body because I forgot the nutrient profiles, but it has a bunch of like vitamins and minerals, and it's really good with detoxing. So I'll put like kale in my smoothie, and then I'll mix it with bananas and maybe one more serving of like rainbow carrots, right? Like organic carrots, something that has high vibe, like high life force in it. And then the protein, like I'll mix it all together and I'll drink that. And then at nighttime, like I'm trying to be super clean, then I'll just eat like two different colors of vegetables and then some very high quality meat, not like the conventionally raised chicken or not the conventionally raised pork, or like beef, like grass fed, pasture raised, wild caught fish, like high quality stuff. And like you're gonna have to pay more for it, which a lot of people have problems with. But it's like if you go out and eat, what is that extra $5 you're spending on a pound of meat, or what is that extra $10 you're spending on the fish? It kind of balances out. And it's like even if you don't see it that way, eventually you're gonna pay for it somehow down the line with like ill health, so you might as well just pay an extra $5, $10, $20 on quality food and get it clean as possible. So yeah, the way I go about it is like 2 to 3 different colors, and then make it as high quality as organic as possible and keep it clean. That's the secret sauce right there. Yeah.
Awesome. Speaking of secret sauce,
Yeah.
we kind of went off topic earlier.
The trading.
So
Yeah.
we got to go back to like the
Yeah.
secret
Yeah, I
sauce of
got you.
like the 10 years of
Yeah.
experience that you've
Yeah.
learned through like making consistent gains. So Kevin, what
Yeah.
is the secret? What is the secret people need to hear?
Yeah. Well, I'll share what works for me. But yeah, I feel like I don't like I'm qualified to do it, but I don't feel like I look good enough to like justify like taking, you know what I'm saying? But that's just, stuff I just got to get through. But basically the way I've progressed this year or these last few years consistently is actually one is just recovering, getting enough sleep. Because if you're not sleeping enough and you're not recovered, then you can't physically push yourself at the gym to lift more, right? But the training secret is just progressive overload. Like it's clean, it's like strict form, like good form, not just like pumping out the body. Like you see people just swinging, just like jerking,
Mhm.
and they look like crap. It's because they're not lifting properly. All right, like bodybuilders, they know how to train, they know how to lift, they know how to target like the muscles, different angles, right? Just by changing your cam position, you can hit a different strand of muscle. So really focusing on the form and then progressively overloading it either through reps and sets. It's not really a secret because everyone knows progressive overload, but no one really practices it. Like for me, like I'll give you an example. Like just this year, I started off with doing single arm dumbbell presses, like shoulder presses with about 70 pounds. And I hit that for about maybe 10, 12 reps. And that was a little bit hard for me. But as I progressed, I upped it up to 75 pounds, 80 pounds, 85 pounds. And just on Valentine's Day, I decided to push it up to 100 pounds. So I was able to do 100-pound single arm press above my head for 5 reps, right? And then once I get strong enough to do it for 8 reps, like my shoulders are going to look a little bit different than when I do it for only 5 reps. And if I can get it for 12 reps, then my shoulders going to look even more different from doing it for 12. You know what I'm saying? It's that progressive overload over time. But in order to get that, you have to be recovered. You have to have your nutrition on point. Everything has to be like dialed in, like your whole life basically has to be oriented around your health and wellness, getting enough sleep, getting good nutrients, and then knowing how to lift. Most people don't know how to lift at the gym. If you just look around, they don't know how to lift. So it's just strict form and progressively overloading your body over time. That's the
Mm,
secret. Yep.
nice. All right. You hear it here. You heard it here on the Phong Show, folks.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That's
Yep.
funny.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, yeah, I know sleep is something that's critical. It's kind of night and day difference. Like
Yeah.
whenever I have low sleep versus high sleep,
Uh-huh.
the effect that has on my in my lifts.
Uh-huh.
So, how much sleep do you normally get? Like 7, 8 hours, or?
Yeah, I've been trying to sleep early this year since I stopped playing video games, League of Legends, right, last year. So I sleep around 10, no more than 11. Like it won't ever pass 11. And then I'll wake up around 6. So if I don't wake up and pee, usually that happens. I'll be able to sleep until that's a good 8 hours. So 7 to 8 hours, I would say, solid rest. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A couple of specifics about form.
Uh-huh.
Is it like, when you're doing it with strict form, is it like
Yeah.
a 1-1 sort of tempo
Oh,
with
tempos. Yeah.
eccentric and concentric, or is it like 1-2 in the
Uh,
eccentric? Like what is
y-
the sort of tempo for it?
yeah, I think, well, it depends on the lift and it depends on what you're trying to do. But I would say time under tension, like the longer you keep it, like the longer tempo is, the more your muscles are going to rip. And the more your muscles are going to rip, the better they'll look and come back. Like that's when you get the striations. Like if you're doing your bicep curls and you're coming up for 1 and then you're controlling it down for 3, or you're coming up for 2 and then you're controlling it down for 3 or 4 seconds, that's when you'll see most of the gains. So like if I'm doing 30-pound dumbbells and I'm squeezing and I'm controlling it down for 3 seconds and I can do like 12 strict reps with that, then the next time I would try and do that for like either 15 reps, right? Or I'll bump it up to 35 pounds and I'll try to get 8 reps in. And then I'll keep going that process until I can get 12 reps clean or 15 reps clean. And then you'll bump it up again and then like 40 pounds. So like now I could like start to curl 60 pounds, but I can't do it clean, right? But I could do 50 pounds clean, right? So then I'll just keep oscillating, jumping back and forth between 50 pounds, 60 pounds, but really focusing on the squeeze and the time under tension, mind muscle connection, time under tension, really focusing on just the body part that you're doing and really maximizing, like zoning in on that, you know. And then there's like different hand grips, there's different like angles you can hit it out. So there's so many different ways you could approach it to make the muscle grow and stuff like that. But yeah, time and attention. Yeah.
So before you move on to like the next weight level, do you, so like, are you doing one-on-one tempos? Or like
No.
what kind of tempo?
Oh, I see. Well, so like it would depend on the exercise. Like for back too, like if I do the pull down machine, I come down for like 2 seconds and then I control it back up for 3 or 4 seconds. So it really depends. Like if the heavier it is, you can't physically do that tempo, but your goal is you want to do that tempo. Like I would say the longer the better. Try something insane. Try to make it like 5 seconds controlling it down and then like 8 seconds controlling it back. So you can really feel the muscle.
Right.
And then amp that all the way up until you can't physically do it anymore. But the tempo, it depends on the exercise, but I would say the longer the better if you're trying to body build.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So how often are you switching the different types of like exercises? Are you doing the same exercise every day and then like progressively overloading there, or like how often do you change day to day?
Yeah. So for my key lifts, you know how people say there's like the squat, the bench, the deadlift, and all that. Because I'm so into functional training and posture and whatnot, I can't overload those lifts. Like I can't overload bench. I can't overload like anything that's like squat, like stationary, because I have imbalances. You know, like my clavicle on my right side is physically smaller, so like I can't overload it without causing pain in my body. So instead of doing like bench press, I'll overload the dumbbell press, you know, so I could, put up a decent weight for the dumbbell press. And then the shoulder, I'll overload, single arm press as opposed to the, military press. So I try to get stronger on the key lifts, but the terms of like the progressive overload, the switching back and forth, then that's where I'll play around with. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been really intentional about like my workouts as well. Focusing on like tempo, and then I've been also trying to switch things up, a little bit. Like I think, a trainer told me that like every 3 to 4 months he would switch the whole training, so that way it keeps the body guessing and not be at the same pace. So like I'm trying different things, but like I need to focus more on progressive overload. Like it's easy to just go to the gym and just do the same thing.
Yeah.
But like having something to strive for, maybe even planning it out of where you want to be could probably help. I recently seen your like content on like building Olympic level discipline.
Oh yeah.
So can you talk about like what that looks like? What is Olympic level discipline?
Yeah. Well, in that video, I broke down what I observed in the people, like the top echelon, like the highest performing athletes, like Kobe Bryant, Michael Phelps was in that video, Eminem, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I listened to the stuff that they were talking about, and I try to figure out, okay, what exactly do they do that other people aren't doing, or what did they do that allow them to achieve the levels of success that they have? And I broke it down pretty simply in a basic model, right? So there's like a triangle. At the top of the triangle would be a dream, a vision, or a goal. And at the bottom of the triangle would be a burning desire. And then in the middle would be habits. So it's a dream, a vision, or goal, right? A burning desire at the bottom, the foundation, and then the habits, right? So it's really basic, really simple, but there's a lot more to it than that, because a lot of people have, a lot of people have a dream, a vision, or goal. Like I want to be a millionaire. I want this, I want that. And they have a desire, but it's not like burning, right? Like when you really, really, really want something, you put in the work, you make the sacrifices, you figure out how to merely, you put in the action steps, and the habits are like the things you do every single day to get better at what you do, to achieve the hope, the dream, the vision, or the goal. But there's a lot more to it than that. There's like, you have to know how to practice. Like it's all back down to the technique, like you need to know how to lift, you need to know how to hit your body at different angles. So that's the essence of it. Have a dream, a vision, or goal for what you want in your life. have a burning desire to feel that, and then develop the habits that you do every day to get you there. And that's what I observed in them. Kobe Bryant would train 3 times a day. Arnold trained 4 to 5 hours a day. Michael Phelps swam like 6 to 8 hours a day. So it's just insane work ethic. But they only had that because they had Olympic, levels of discipline. Basically. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So like
Yeah.
if someone knows what they need to do
Uh-huh. But they have
and
trouble
they
doing
don't
it.
do it, do you think it's because their goal is not the right goal, or like they don't have a burning desire, or like, or are they, like, is it procrastination? Do you have to like get over like a mental hurdle? Like, how
Yeah.
does someone fix that?
That's a good question because last year, for most of my life, I couldn't, like, there was 1 foot on the brake, 1 foot off the brake. Like, I knew this is what I wanted to do. I know what I want in my life. Why can't I get myself to take action? Like, why can't I do what I know I need to do? And I think, yeah, some of that comes down to not having a clear dream, vision, or goal. Like, you say you want that, but do you really want that? Like, everyone wants to be a millionaire, but everyone wants to be a millionaire because that's the goal, that's the culture. Everyone wants to be a millionaire, right? But if you really figure out who you are, like what your heart is calling you to do, what's genuine, what's passionate for you, and you genuinely want to do it, you'll have something that gives you that desire. And I always make the comparison, like the video game people who play video games, right? Like, you don't have to they don't have to discipline themselves to play video games, right? Because they don't actually like they don't have to discipline. It's just fun for them. Like, I
Mhm.
want to play video games, I want to get better, I want to level up,
Right.
because they enjoy doing it. So the key is, some people, they haven't figured out or found something that they genuinely enjoy doing. Like, for me, working out, I love doing it. I like going to the gym, I like looking at the beautiful girls, and I like training hard, and I like seeing my body change, and I don't have to discipline myself to do it because I love doing it, right? So part of figuring out your life, finding your life purpose, is finding something you're passionate about, something that's genuinely interesting for you, where you actually are willing to put in the work. And the more you're clear on that, and the more reasons you find to throw into the fire, the bigger, the bigger the flame grows, and the more you'll be able to take action. But the people who can't take action, chances are they're in an environment, or they have like subconscious conditioning or limiting beliefs, or things they haven't cleared out of their mind and their body and their soul yet. They haven't like eliminated that, and they haven't gotten clear on what they wanted. So there's a lot of incoherence in their body. That's why I would say, for the people who can't take action.